Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast for busy professionals who want to plan unforgettable trips without the stress. If you're craving adventure, relaxation, or cultural immersion, but feel overwhelmed where to start, this is the show for you. Each week, we dive into travel tips, expert strategies, and actionable advice to help you save time, money, and hassle while helping you design your dream trip. From group getaways to romantic escapes to adventure packed journeys and budget friendly tips, we cover it all. I'm Ross, your host and travel enthusiast, with over a decade of experience balancing a demanding career while also planning trips to over 25 cities in Europe, all over the US, Central America, the Caribbean, and beyond. I've mastered the art of stress free planning, and I'm here to help you do the same. If you love what you hear, don't forget to follow the show, leave us a review, as well as share it with a fellow traveler. I want to make your next adventure the easiest and most memorable yet. Now, on with the show. Welcome to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss. I'm excited this week for our guest, Danielle Riddle. She is the CEO of Inspired Travel Group. And when I got the chance to connect with her, I was getting ready to go run 3 miles after because I'm so excited for what we're about to talk about. She brings a wealth of knowledge to just luxury travel, also for different businesses. But we're also going to dive into just health, wellness, personal growth, as well as just some exciting things around AI. So, wanted to bring her on. How are you doing today, Danielle?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for so much. And I don't want to sell you short. So would love to just hear a little bit more about your background and what you do.
Sure. Look, Inspired was sort of born from the fact that I've been in this industry for a very long time, from when I was quite young, actually. And I originally worked in sort of that big box environment, which was great to actually start my career and let me learn the ropes of what was going on. But what it also did for me was highlight a lot of the areas that I could see really needed changing and really needed improvement, which, is pretty daunting because there's some big guys in our industry. But I think, we were losing sight of what was important when it came to travel. And I think the passion side of it and the focus on service over volume was just lacking. And I could see that by churn and burn and the way the industry was working, you look at the bigger automated services, they certainly make sense for why they've come into the market and how it helps people to design travel for themselves. But there is still so much an element of service required that over the last few decades, we've just seen it deplete and deplete. So, my vision for Inspired was to really bring people back to service, really bring that focus back to our business, to humanize the travel industry again. And so that's exactly what we did. We went niche. It's always you get a lot of criticism. People come at you thinking you're a crazy person, trying to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. But it was like, I do believe that if you stand strong with your convictions and you understand what it is you're trying to achieve and focus on it, you can get there. So, it was born of that kind of idea, and we've stayed true to that focus ever since. And, since 2009, we've now become really, really made a path for ourselves, and we've really, I think, made a huge impact in the industry and changed the way people think about their expectations of travel, and also particularly in business travel, how important it is to focus on your staff. And yeah, that's really what we pride ourselves on.
That's awesome. And I know when we were talking, when we first met, when you started speaking about that, that hits home for me because from a
Mm.
business travel standpoint, I've been in a W-2 job traveling and understand some of those big pain points, right? And then also from a personal standpoint, same type of thing. But like you mentioned, sometimes if you have traveled, a lot of the times the customer service aspect, yes, sometimes you can find really good deals using some different
Mm.
platforms that are automated. But also, if something goes wrong, a lot of the times they're not going to be there. It's going to be, you're going to be waiting in a long line. You may not be able to call, right, your credit card. You may not be able to call that human
Yeah.
element like you guys, like you offer. So no, I love that. And I mean, that is a game changer, right? You have to set yourself apart with that human type touch, and you niching down, like you said, right? You're going
Yeah.
to serve a specific audience, which at the end of the day, you're going to provide them more value versus working with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest pain point now, even more so, like we saw this years ago, but it's actually coming even more into fruition now that people realize that you actually do get what you pay for. I know that that's like the old saying, but it's true. You have to manage your expectations. The online tools are fantastic if you use them and you understand what comes with that cost saving. And I think there's been a huge misconception about people just sort of think, well, but travel shouldn't cost me anything to do this, or like it shouldn't cost more. I should be able to get it as cheap as possible and have this amazing level of service to go with it. Those two things just don't work in any industry, right? So you have to really manage your own expectations, and it's about managing client expectations, both leisure and corporate, to understand how they need to prioritize to make sure that even if something costs you a little bit more money, like you say, if you're on the phone to Air Canada or United Airlines for 3 hours to try and get your flight ticket switched, and then guess what? It expires or you don't get it done, and then you're sitting in the airport for 3 days, the productivity you've lost and the cost associated far outweighs the extra $100 that you could have paid in the first place. So it's about educating people, right? And also us being able to put our money where our mouth is too.
Yeah, no, 100%. One of our favorite sayings in our group of friends is you got to pay to play. And that came up when we were
Mhm.
in Greece because we were like, well, I guess we got to pay this much for this because it's so expensive,
Yep.
but also time is money. And right, one of my favorite books by Dan Martell is Buy Back Your Time. It's like looking at your, cost per hour, and if there's something that isn't worth your time, or you need to, right, you want to have a better experience, you have to pay a little bit more, but at the end of the day, you're paying to not have that headache. And that's the human touch that you and your team bring, which is awesome to hear. And I've personally had those pain points before, so
Yes.
I can speak from that experience. And the goal is, right, for busy professionals who, at least my audience, and even on the business side, it's like if you're just starting out traveling on the business
Mhm.
side, or if you've traveled for business and you're a busy professional, you want to start to trip plan personally, like that's the goal of what I do, as well as the goal of what you do, is helping educate
Mhm.
people to get them started off on the right path, because we've both been doing this a long time, where we're trying
Yes.
to expedite and not make you make the same mistakes that we've had to go through, we've seen over and over. So that's, yeah, I know we were talking the first time, that's what I really valued and came away from our conversation.
Yeah, and I think if people focus on just the cost of their trip, if they sort of say, I've got this much money, so I need to find something that will fit into that, right? Or they take the cheapest option because it will get them there, or it will like it'll get you to that destination you want to go to. I can pretty much guarantee you're going to get home with complaints and things you weren't happy about, because the issue is you haven't taken the time to qualify yourself as to what it is you actually want to achieve from that trip. And it's the same thing with corporate travel and groups and things like that, which we'll get into, I'm sure. You've got to look at them from the right objective in the first place. And I think this is where this isn't a natural thing that comes to people. We can't just expect that, yeah, we can go on and use the automated service and it's going to answer these questions for us. But it is far more complex and complicated than people, I think, give it credit for. That travel is so emotional and it is so integral to our wellness and our life. And I think when we try to be laxed about it or try to take a quick fix or an easy cut, we end up disappointed, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of the times people, I mean, most people have, 2, 3 weeks of vacation. Some have unlimited, but most can only take one big trip. So it is important that you do and plan and spend a little bit extra. And there's some stuff that we can get into
yes,
later, just around like points, right? Strategies,
yeah.
just around. I know you just went on the social, so talking about a little bit about off-peak travel, but I know you were talking about wellness. So I want to dive into that first because
Sure.
before we talked, I just, I was online and I saw one of your
Yes.
passions is just around the impact of it on mental
Yeah.
health, personal growth. And for me personally, I've been in the healthcare industry for 10 years. So like I see it where, and we were talking about this, where even though I'm in healthcare, those are usually the most burnt out people, the doctors, the
Oh,
nurses,
without a
the
doubt.
sales reps.
Yes.
And I think people just think it's that hamster wheel. And if you haven't done it right, once you take a step out and realize, wow, travel actually helps me, it starts to compound just like investing over 10 years. You start to gain different experiences from all the different cultures. That's really important. And that's what I try to teach to a lot of people because it's impacted me.
Yeah.
But would love just to hear from you personally. How has it impacted you and shaped your wellness journey?
Oh, look, I think it's been a part of why I got into the travel industry in the first place is that, I always look at things as like, what do I see as being enriching and valuable to my life? I want to work in what I love and live. So for me, way back when I was younger, I was like, okay, what are my passions? What are my hopes and dreams? And I wanted to travel the world. I've always been that way inclined. It's always been exciting to me. And so was that how can I incorporate my career into my dreams, right, and my hopes? And so that was sort of where the seed was planted with me. But as I've gone on, I realized that it's such an important part of like my broadening my own perspective on things, and like it's constantly able to provide a reprieve for me from the everyday life. So when I have something to look forward to, I'm planning my next experience, so to speak. It's this amazing like goal that I have. And I know that all the hard work that I'm doing, that's how I get valued for it in the end, right? For me, it gives me a chance to stop. I can reflect, I can recalibrate, and then I can come back with this newfound energy that I'm normally ready with my next project or idea. And that can come from immersing myself into another culture and naturally forcing myself out of my comfort zone. And I think this is what's happened to me over the course of my career. Every time I need a little spark, a little bit more energy, that comes from these experiences and seeing the world, right? And so I know how valuable it is, but also I know how much it helps people in terms of wellness in the rejuvenation side of it. When it comes to the corporate world, we're both in that, right? You've been working in it, and as you said, you're kind of like textbook our clients that are traveling so much for work. And if their company continues to treat them just like a number and not a human, they get burnt out, they quit, they leave, they're unhappy, they're not getting fulfilled in their job. And so this is the things I recognized and thought we need to make sure that we have a service and a solution for people so that these people are being protected in their bubble of travel while they're having to work and travel so much, right? And there's many things that we can do to help if you're traveling for work, how you incorporate it to make it more valuable to your health as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm just glad in 2019 I realized like, okay, this, I was a road warrior and then I moved more into transitional into that's why started this because I saw the impact, right? And I think you made a couple good points just around each time you come back from a trip, you're rejuvenated, you already have your next idea, right? Because you're able to step out of, okay, I'm focused on this and a couple little things, but you can, when you're doing that, you're able to think clear and yeah, I
Mm.
mean, for me personally, we went to Portugal in 2023. That was right before I started and launched Itinerary Boss. We went to Costa Rica on a remote work trip and
Mm.
spent it where instead of going to the gym, instead of doing the to-do list after work, we were walking
Mhm.
a couple miles on the beach, watching the sunset, and like the thoughts from there came. And
Yeah.
then went to Joshua Tree for a 2 day just like reflection. Okay, let me think about this kind of next phase. And those are the type of things when you take that and you just take a step back and think about them,
Yeah.
like it's very important. And yeah, for the people who are traveling from a work perspective, it is. And I think the nice thing is for you and your company is nowadays a lot of newer, I would say in the millennial generation and younger who are either entrepreneurs starting their new companies or, they have a company, they're focused on those type of things because they know at the end of the day, there's other competitors where a lot of employees value that. And it isn't just about making as much money as possible. It's like, what's that work-life balance where also I can get that and I can probably go to another company to do the, make around the same, but also have a better work-life balance.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to work-life balance, this is the most important thing that we need to focus on because, I always emphasize this, and even to my staff, it's really important in my own company that the number one commodity is time. And so I've never focused on making millions of dollars. I've always focused on how do I get more time in my day? And that is what is so important because time gives you freedom and it gives you better health and wellness. And at the end of the day, if you focus on this rather than focusing on how much money can I make doing this, it will get you out of the rat race and essentially out of the monotony and, like you say, the routine. And we've seen the increase in the last, what is it? Probably 4 decades in chronic health issues, right? And you are obviously in the medical field, so you can see the irony of, yeah, you're traveling around like a crazy person for work as a sales rep or whatever it may be, what people are doing in the industry. And the irony is that they're having to produce medications to fix the issues that we have of chronic stress and chronic fatigue, right? So if we can just go holistically with this and go back to basics and realize that we actually need to focus on like relaxing ourselves a little bit and like taking the time to invest in our personal health and well-being, it's going to be a far better solution for your lifestyle. And yeah, I think you got to constantly tell yourself
Yeah.
and your staff. And I say this to other CEOs, I'm speaking to other people who are running companies, and just it doesn't work anymore to just drill people into the ground. People aren't going to do that. So, you can try and use those old school mentalities, but unfortunately, you'll get swallowed up because people just, whether you like it or not, the generations below us, or coming up behind us will not stand for it. So you either keep up or you're out of there, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean it definitely hits home, and I mean I've seen it firsthand. I mean that's kind of the nice thing for me is I transitioned from being in the field, more remote, not really traveling at all for work and more just doing everything remotely and sometimes traveling more on the personal side, but that gave me the time to step back and realize and see from other people who are on the road all the time who are, bragging, "Hey, I have the highest Delta status, or I have this," but then
Yeah.
they're out for a couple weeks because they're sick or they have this, and it's like you need to focus on those type of things. And yeah, I mean, you said it best. I mean, we're literally then going in and creating things to do that versus focusing on the healthy habits. And there's things that you realize through travel. I mean, one of those for me is, and I heard this on a podcast, like taking. I mean, sometimes it's harder when you have kids. I don't, so I'm not in those shoes, but giving yourself a certain amount of personal time. And whether
Yes.
that's 2, whether that's 3 hours, I know for me in the morning for an hour, I like to read a book. I like to
Mhm.
do write things that help me go to the gym, and just focusing on those things because at the end of the day, those are going to help you perform better and give you, if you are stressed out, like go to the gym, go walk, go do
Yeah.
something. And it doesn't have to be a 2 week massive trip across the world. It can be a one day, hey, I'm going to take this off and have this for myself. And I think
Mhm.
that's what sometimes a misconception might be is it has to be this massive long trip that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And that's
Yeah,
not the
not at
case with
all.
travel.
That's right. There's so many options for people. They don't need to, think of it as a waste of money or too much money. But yeah, you really need to focus on ensuring that you're actually living your life. Like this is the thing for me. I'm like, if you focus on lifestyle, you'll actually enjoy your growing years. At the time I am in my life, I have children, I have a business, all of these things, but I have I have a really good sense of how to make sure that I'm prioritizing, loving my life. And I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but at the end of the day, it's it's what we're here for. I just don't want to work, 14-hour days. And I did that back in the day too, when I was working in a more of a big box environment. And I realized that, like you say, even the bank account grows, the frequent flyer points grow, the whatever it is, and you get addicted to seeing like, oh my gosh, I'm in the millionaire status for United or whatever it may be, right? Like you say, if you can't actually take the time to enjoy that, what's the point of doing it? And you're only getting the status because you're doing it so much for work. So,
Yeah.
it can be a very we can get into that rat race, and we get so used to habit and routine, and breaking it sometimes is really hard. And even, when I talk to corporate clients and explain to them about how, it's very important that they consider their staff that are working for them and traveling the way they are. This is a huge impact. This has a huge impact on their health and wellness. But then at the end of the day, if you want to look at it from a business perspective, it has a huge impact on the business's productivity and the business's profitability at the end of the day. If you fly on a 3-stop flight to, Rome because you've got a business meeting, but you haven't slept, you're tired, you're fatigued, you hate your life right now
Yeah.
because you've just arrived, so tired, you're going to resent the company you work for. If you've got to try and walk straight into a meeting and perform at peak, how do you do that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when you talk to people about this, even corporations that we work with, and they say, like, what are these ideas you have for policies that we can implement? Why are they better than what we're doing? Because we're just letting our CFO say it's cheapest, cheapest, cheapest. When you actually explain these things, they sit back and go, huh, we didn't really think about it in the
Yeah.
big picture sense, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. If we value these people and we actually allow them to travel like comfortably and properly and based on the right kind of schedules, they're going to get better results. So
Yeah.
it works across the board, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
You have to think.
it's a total cost. It's just a value type analysis that they need to sit back and think outside of just the parallel that they're looking in. It's thinking more, but that's perfect, and that's why obviously your business is thriving. You're looked at as that consultant who helps people, and that's no, I think that's really great. I do, and we can get to because I don't lose my train of thought.
Sure.
We can get to this later in the episode, but I think one misconception, and this is something that I had when I first started out traveling for business, is you have to be a part of one airline, you have to be a part of this, and that's the only way you can travel, and that's not the
Mhm.
case. I think that I don't travel for business really at all anymore, and we're flying business class to Bali and Thailand on our honeymoon using just credit card points, and that's where I
Yeah.
help other people. And I wish that I knew this, but like for example, Hyatt, if you want to go stay places, you can stay places for 5, 10,000 points that are transferable currencies from different travel credit cards, from different just areas of doing that where you don't have to solely be, I'm only Marriott, I'm only Hilton, I'm only American or Delta.
Totally.
And that's a huge misconception. And I think when
Mm.
people realize that, they don't have to have status like that and fly all over the place. It can be,
No.
hey, Alaska has a 10,000-mile sail round trip from Charlotte to Dominican. I'm taking that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think this comes into, you need to invest the time into your planning as well, because you're obviously like as savvy as the rest of us are in this little world that we're obsessed with travel. I It's almost like a hobby for me to
Hmm.
be able to find those deals and like work the system properly, right? And I
Yeah.
think when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's so exciting and fulfilling when you actually get something like that. I love that feeling when I'm like, oh my gosh, I was able to redeem my Amex point for, this, and then they reduce the rate. And if a new property is opening, that's another great tip.
Yeah.
If you know this new property is opening, always in the first 6 months, you get really low points conversion. So like always be doing your research and read about new up and coming properties of chains you might like.
Hmm.
Yeah, as a true travel sort of expert, I guess you could say, or like I'm very extremely passionate about travel. I don't want to limit myself to one chain or brand because that's also going to like give me unreal expectations of what I can expect from other properties, right? If you don't see other chains and how they're working, you don't actually know what you like. If you're just traveling with Marriott,
Yeah.
you don't know anybody else. So,
Yeah.
I always like to keep it different and unique, and yeah, take advantage of any of those opportunities you can, and I'm sure, as you know, there's some really great people online as well that are providing those services too, but again, like sometimes you have to pay for that, but
Yeah.
it pays off in the end.
100%. And like that's
Yeah.
where And I think that's where people, and you were on the social, which I want to get into
Mm.
some of that, which was exciting. I'll share the link in the interview, in our show notes, but you talked about, and this is something that I'm passionate about. Our favorite time to travel is off peak, but people
Yes.
think peak and off peak. People think that, oh, I need to go during the summer,
Yeah.
which unfortunately is going to be the most expensive, which is going to be the most crowded, and you're not going to
Mm.
get what we're talking about, flexible, points,
No.
conversions, right? You're not going to be able to find some of that saver space. And that's our favorite time to travel is that September, October, April, May, because it is those things. But would love to hear from you, like, obviously those are important, but are there specific locations off peak that you recommend? And it could maybe be for, we can break this into two, maybe first time travelers, and then
Mm.
also maybe if someone's wanting a business who's wanting to maybe
Mm.
do a retreat or a group who wants to stay in maybe a larger setting.
Yeah, so look, there's many different in terms of off peak. If you're going anywhere off peak, you can choose wherever you want to go, I would say. There's no specific place that I would say off peak here is better than others. There's actually a lie. There is one place that I would say is like one of my sweet spots, and I don't like to give it away too much, but I will. But like Hawaii, I'm based in Vancouver, so that's a big one for us, West Coasters. Hawaii is so expensive, right? It's become so expensive post-COVID. They're recouping a lot of costs, rightfully so. But
Mhm.
there is a very, very, very sweet spot off peak for Hawaii, and that is between Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. After Thanksgiving, a lot of people in the US, that is the no-go zone. And I would say this is a lot of places across the board, but we see a huge cost saving in Hawaii, particularly in this time, because Hawaii is so expensive. It's a great one to use. But even Mexico is the same, a lot of Central America. If you head to Hawaii, not only are you going to get probably the best weather that you'll get all year in Hawaii in early December, late November, but everybody's gone from the Thanksgiving absolute craziness and cost explosions. You get very quiet resorts. All of the properties have points available for you to redeem, so you can get upgrades. It's just a sweet spot. So we pretty much have gone as long as I've lived in Vancouver. We hit up that area early December. Before then, the Christmas crowd comes because you've got that coming again. So it's a really cool sweet spot. And I would say, really, anywhere in the world, if you can travel further and you've got the time, you're not bound by school and things like that. Southeast Asia, the same sort of thing, right? Head down there in that sweet spot before Christmas. Oh my gosh, talk about saving money,
Yeah.
like and taking advantage of points, airlines, frequent flyers, all of them. So from an off-peak perspective, it's always about doing your research about when is that peak time and honestly finding that real little shoulder almost as close to the peak as you can, because right before it, it will be the quietest it is, and then
Mhm.
right after it as well. So anywhere that you're going, and look, Europe, I know we talked about this, had a chat before, and Europe in the summer is just like the craziest place. And it's become this like phenomenon because of laughable phenomenon from Instagram and like the how Instagram is just turning us into being overpromised and underdelivered across the board. And
Yeah.
I say this when it comes to
Yeah.
travel, this comes to recipes and stuff as
Yeah.
well. Trust me, I try to make them thinking they're going to turn out right. And then I'm just like devastated that I think I'm a bad cook. It's the same as travel. Like these blue domes in Greece, I know you mentioned it too. Oh my gosh, I was there in the summer, but because my kids go to school, and so we have to go in the summer,
Yeah.
and I literally stopped in Santorini just to witness, and that's the crazy part, just to witness what extent people are going to. And I have never seen anything so like funny to me. Like as a person who really wants to see Greece, I get it. People dressed up at 7 o'clock in the morning in a line an hour and a half long to get a photo of a blue dome that everybody else has.
Yeah,
Like, I
it's
get
crazy.
it.
I know. Well, you're making me feel better about the recipe that I cooked last night that was underwhelming. So thank you for
Oh
that.
my God,
But
I did one too. Literally last night. And I said,
that's
this is the
funny.
same thing that it's like, it looks shiny and beautiful, but the reality is not necessarily that. And I think I actually literally said this last night to my husband. I have so many amazing cookbooks and I love cooking as well. I'm a really passionate cook. And why am I not just cooking from the chefs that are renowned expert
Yeah.
chefs? Why am I going
That's
to
funny.
the sort of fake sauce because it's shiny and pretty and it's gotten me in with marketing, right? And so
Yep.
it's the same, exactly the same thing with our industry. You need to actually take the time to do your own research or talk to a professional that really understands what they're talking about because
Yeah.
there is a benefit to it. Otherwise, you get egg on your face like I did yesterday, Sean.
That's funny. Yeah, no, you're
Yeah.
spot on. I think that is, and luckily my birthday is December 15th. So each year we're
Mm,
looking at that sweet spot if we can. This past year was great. The past 2 years we had New Year's Eve weddings, so we kind of couldn't both Christmas,
yeah.
Thanksgiving. But this year, from Charlotte, where a lot of people who listen, you can get direct flights to a lot of different places in the Caribbean, South America,
Yes.
or Central America. Like we went to Turks and Caicos, and round trip was like 15,000 points, and the stay to stay there was cheap and it's empty. And that's my favorite part about it is, and I
Mm,
did a social media series walking people through, and it's just like, that's the best time to go. And if you're looking for those types, you have to be flexible. But at the end of the day, you're going to save a ton of money. You're going to also, there's no one at the airport.
mm,
It just makes it a way better experience. And yeah, we went to Santorini and we went on that like perfect cusp of shoulder season where they were closing down some of the stuff in middle to end of September. And that was perfect
perfect
because the
time.
weather was
Yeah.
great. The cost was way less. It
That's
was
a sweet
a
spot. Yeah.
little bit crowded, Santorini, but we were laughing because we stayed. Um, we could see into the caldera, and everyone was lined up right in front of our place. So we did a good job picking it, but
Yeah.
everyone was in the blue dresses, and I had a drone shot of everyone like lined up from the bottom up to the top, and we were just cracking up. We're like, this is crazy.
It's so funny. It's just the weirdest thing to me. I can't understand it. But again, maybe that's a generation thing that I can't understand. But at the end of the day, I think like any of these things, it's like it comes and goes and it comes in waves and the pendulum swings, right? And this is like if you can think in the right way of knowing that something is at an extreme, and that's exactly what happened when I came into the industry with Inspired. The pendulum was swinging and it was had swung way too far and it was up on this volume over service, and
Mhm.
people were just angry and sick of it and didn't know how to get any kind of real person to talk to. The pendulum is swinging back slowly but surely. So thankfully, we made a good call on that. But I just knew that it had to because it was getting beyond realistic for anybody to be able to travel. Prices are continuing to go up, and yet service is depleting. Something doesn't add up here,
Yeah.
right? So, and you just see it across the board with many different industries, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, the weird Instagram phenomenon though, and knowing as well that these influencers and all power to an influencer who can make a huge career out of what they're doing. But you have to remember that these influencers go, and a lot of the time, I was at a property in Cabo like a couple of years ago, and I'm there actually staying at the
Yeah.
resort, enjoying the facilities, and enjoying my time. And there were so many influencers at this property, and it was so funny because they would come out and sit by the pool, but not really sit by the pool. They were setting up their shot, they were getting the position, they were getting the lighting, they were doing all this stuff. And the reality is, just because I have so many contacts in hotels as well, most of the influencers get set up to come in for a day shoot. They don't even get to stay there. They're at the hostel down the road,
Wow.
right? And so they come in, they do a day shoot, they get a room for 5 hours, and they can do what they need to do with it, take as many photos as they want, have the floating breakfast in the over water pool, over like that's just the quintessential thing, right?
Yeah.
But is staged. At the end of the day, we have to remember
Yeah.
that the reality is different. And then if you travel in peak time, the reality is even different
Yeah.
again because services deplete, they can't keep up with the demand. Whereas, like you said, going to the Caribbean in that sweet spot, you're going to get really good service. You're going to get great attention. You're always going to get a beach chair.
Yep.
You're never going to have to fight for things. There's something really rewarding about that. And you feel like you like beat the system. It's a
Oh yeah.
nice, great feeling.
100%. No, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, especially the hotel piece. I wasn't aware of that, but I mean, I always I think people give me crap because when I go on vacation, like of course for my business I want to get content, but it's like
Yeah, of course.
it's here's a checklist, here it is, and I don't want to be on my phone. Like
Yeah.
that's and it's like here's but it's not that is a but again, power to them for making a career, but at the end of the day, right? People have an end game where, right, they're trying to get you to go there to then get paid on the back end, which is totally fine. But just knowing that, so, and like we talked about, social media is a blessing and a curse. It gives
Yes.
people to understand, hey, there's actually things that I can go do that's cool, but you need to find experts or people who have done it that maybe
Yeah.
I try to call myself an expert, but people who
Yeah.
have done it for a while, who have learned those lessons, who can say, and I was the type of person in our 20s, we went to Europe every summer. We like to go have a
Mhm.
good time. But
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, I like to go in those shoulder seasons because that's a way better time, cheaper, and you're going to get the more authentic experience. And
Yes.
no, you hit it on the head. I'm curious, just from a like up and coming
Mhm.
places to go. Are there any
Yeah.
outside where you would say maybe someone says, I'll just use Greece, for example, or Italy, because that's where
Mhm.
everyone is like, oh, I got to go there. Are there other places, and they don't have to be in Europe, they can be all over, but that might be, hey, this is up and coming. Maybe you should think about that. That might not be as expensive, but you're going to get the same value, same experience.
Oh, absolutely. I think a big one for me with a hot topic of Europe, because it's become this, it's always been a hot spot, but it's in recent years, as you know, become just blown out of craziness. And I know in the summertime, if you do have to travel in peak, and this is something that I say, there's a lot of people that do. And at the end of the day, I am one of those people too, because I have kids. So if we want to do an extensive Europe trip, or we're going away for a month, I don't want to take my kids out of school for a month, even though I would love to just go in May or
Yeah.
September. But I know the reality is that I should keep them in. And so we will have to go in July or August. And I mean, a great example is Italy is a hotspot. It's amazing. You don't want to miss out on having that experience in your life, I think. But, and I say this, and I talked about this on social as well, but one of the things I do all the time is I say take the destination that you're excited about or that everybody's talking about and find its neighbor. And if you do that, you'll generally find the place that is up and coming or providing almost exactly the same experience, but at sometimes a quarter of the price. And in Italy, a great example of this is we talk about the Amalfi Coast, right? It's one of those absolute hotspots. People talk about it till they're blue in the face. It's the best place in the world. You can't beat it, blah, blah, blah. You get into Naples and it's a very busy, dirty city. And it's like always busy. Even in the off peak, Naples is busy. And then you head down the Amalfi Coast and it's just become so overcrowded and unfortunately, not very sustainable from a tourism perspective, in that in the summertime, very frequently now in the last couple of years, they've lost power to the whole area. People are, don't have water, don't have power. You imagine you're on your holiday. We're talking, like you said, hopes and dreams. You've saved up, you're spending $600 a night on something that should be worth about 150. You are going to be so upset. And this is inevitable. The amount of tourists that are being let into that area and the amount of what's happening is just exhausting the resources of the Amalfi. And look, this is a beautiful place. There's no doubt about it. And if you can go in May, go there for sure. However, if you just go down the other coast and head to Puglia, you've got an absolute gem. Like I took my family this summer and we spent 3 weeks in Puglia, and it was just amazing. And it's busy in the really busy hotspots of Puglia, but nothing like Amalfi. And there's so many amazing, beautiful villages that you can explore. And you're saving at least 50% compared to doing an Amalfi trip. And the difference is you've got, these amazing beaches on Puglia as well. So when you've got kids, it was particularly good for us because our kids love sandy beaches, obviously.
Yeah.
And just the food scene, the culture, the immersiveness of this area and the authenticity of the local experience was second to none. And, you know, I can't say enough about how amazing it was to be able to be there in July and not feel like
Yeah.
bombarded and that I wanted to go home. Like,
Yeah, no, but those are the type of things that you've been there and you have clients that go there and you're an expert, you have that. And when people may be going to Italy or Europe for the first time, they go where what's on Instagram. I knew when we were going to
yes,
Santorini, this is probably going to be blue dresses, but we got to do it so we can see it. And but out
yes,
of Greece, I mean, that was our least favorite place we went. Milos was our favorite because that was the
yes.
off the beaten path. People are going, but it's nowhere near as crowded. The beaches are great. And for the people who are going to Italy potentially in 2026 for a friend's wedding, you heard it here first. And that's where I probably will
Oh, yeah.
will be going, depending on, I mean, if it's in April or May, maybe different, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good tip and good to know.
Oh, and it's like a really rustic, authentic version of that farm to table Italian experience. And I think, you know, people are looking for that. People think of Tuscany when they think of that, which is also a beautiful destination, but it's
Mhm.
almost like having that Tuscan food experience because they're so passionate in southern Italy, down in Puglia. It's all farming style,
Hmm.
but they're on the coast as well. So you're getting just this amazing combination, and you know, you still got these beach clubs, but what beach clubs used to be in Europe. Beach clubs now in Europe are so glitz and glam that they've
Yeah.
kind of lost a bit of that authenticity. These are those beautiful, you know, parasols on the beach and just like toes in the sand.
Yeah.
You're eating scampi, sitting with a glass of white wine or an Aperol spritz, but it's super cash, and
Yeah.
you just feel, you really feel like this is an Italian dream, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's what you want to feel when you go on vacation. And it's hard to get that if you just follow the mainstream. But I understand why people want to go to the peak, the spots, the hot spots. But it just takes a little bit of time or even just investing a little bit into someone who knows what they're doing, because what you'll get out of it is just second to none, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, another good example, actually, and I know you mentioned that you had recently traveled to Costa Rica, which is a beautiful destination, and it's become this absolute like pura vida hotspot, right?
Yeah.
People are wellness and all of this kind of thing, and amazing. It's getting busy,
Yep.
it's getting a little inundated. Again, take the neighbor, go to Nicaragua, it's a whole new world, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a very similar vibe. So if you're looking for that chill yoga, wellness, you know, immersing yourself in nature vibe, that's exactly the same, but just a little off the beaten path, right? So it's
Yeah.
like find these little gems, and then the properties, if you do comparison of properties for like a luxury property now in Costa Rica, you're paying three times what you would have 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Or even relatively more, because it's just become commercialized, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Nicaragua has these amazing eco-sustainable properties that are all farm to table, amazing cuisine, you know, like little biodiversity hotspots kind of thing, you know, at a third of the price. And
Yeah.
so you can either look at it like, I either want to save money, so I'll do the equivalent of what I was doing in Costa Rica and save money in Nicaragua, or I want to spend the same, and
Yeah.
then you just get an Uber Lux experience of something that you would have gotten for, you know, a superior experience in Costa Rica. I think thinking about it this way, it's like exciting, it's new,
Hmm.
it's when you do come home and people ask you where you went, you're like, oh, you've probably never been there. Like
Yeah.
you haven't heard of this, right? And it's more fulfilling from that stance of like, I feel like I found somewhere undiscovered. I did
Hmm.
something not everybody else is doing, because now we live in a world where it's so small in terms of our communication. Everyone's doing the same things and
Yeah.
it's a bit monkey see monkey do, right?
Yeah.
So if you can feel like you found a secret or you did something a little bit different, it's a very rewarding feeling, and again lends into that health and wellness. If you come home feeling like accomplished, like you pushed yourself, you challenged yourself to go outside of your comfort zone. Um, and yeah, at the end of the day, you can save money doing it too. So
Yeah.
why not, right?
100%. Yeah. No, and I think that's That's a great point. And for us, we went again, it goes back to off peak. We went in that off peak time where we found a
Yeah.
really good deal for Costa Rica. And the reason I like it is, I mean, we were paying with points and it was a lot
Mhm.
and it was cheap. And for us, a direct flight is awesome. But
Yeah,
Nicaragua's
great.
right there. And if you can't get a direct flight, right, it's like look at the different neighbors to those. And like for
Yeah.
us, Belize is one that we really want
Yeah.
to go to. And but that's kind of people don't think of it. And
Right.
it's right there below Mexico. And it's near
Yep.
Bacalar and Tulum where everyone goes. I went to Tulum 5, 6 years ago before it, went crazy.
Yep.
But it's like Dubrovnik, Croatia, when we went in 2018, like very few people had gone and it was so cheap. It was one of our
Oh,
favorite places.
now.
And
Oh
yeah,
my
now,
God.
so I'm like, do I want to go back? I kind of went before, right? So it's just thinking about those things. And like you said, and I always tell people, what's best for you, right? What do you like to do? What's your budget? When can you travel? I think it's more focusing on yourself than what's on Instagram. And if you just want to go chill on the beach and not do anything, there's plenty of destinations. But if you want adventure, if you want those, there's a lot of different areas and places you can go. But it's doing that research. And if you don't have the time, you have people like Danielle and I who have done
Yes.
it, who have spent, right, so many years, hours, lessons learned, right? And
Yes.
that, and it comes from trial and error, but that's where on the business side, you can help. On the personal side for people, I can help. And no, I love your mindset and just thinking that, and you're gaming the system. And after you're like, all right, this is fun. Now I need to just
Yeah.
continue to do it. And then you're like, wow, I really don't like travel was a big expense in our budget, but now it's really not that much of an expense because we're paying with everything with points and we're traveling in off season. And it's
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, I think
We're learning
that's,
the tricks of the trade, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Thankfully, we get a few more perks as
Yeah.
well, being actually in the like as accredited agents. But yeah, it's got again gone to the days of like when influencers were first doing this and going to properties would say, "Oh, well, you can come and stay for free if you're going to promote our product," right? Which
Mhm.
makes sense. But because there's so many of them now, that properties have cottoned onto that and said, nah, we're not just going to
Yeah.
have a hotel full of Instagram influencers who are promising to, put up pictures of our property. So now that's why I said it's just like a day use and people come
Yeah.
in. And so when you actually are dealing with people like you and I who are actually living the experience, this is few and far between now, right? Because not only we're not just getting the free trip, we're actually investing in it ourselves. And again, you get what you pay for. When I'm on my trip to Italy, it's not free. Trust me, it's still I'm working for it. But yes, I may have my tips and tricks, but I'm genuinely there and I've invested the time to passionately put that itinerary together. And I think that's where the difference is, right? I'm not just calling up every single property and saying, who's going to have me for free? And then I'll come, right? Because that to me is just so disingenuous. It's more about like, I'll do my research and then, find that sweet spot when I should go, when I should visit, or what's up and coming. Like,
Yeah.
I would say even for your listeners, I think the next up and coming destination for Europe, especially given how heavily the traffic is there now of tourism, is definitely Turkey. Turkey is going to be the
Yeah.
next Greece and Italy. It's already getting a lot of recognition, but it's going to be a really big destination. So I think get in now. Get in
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You're going to have an amazing experience. There's so much to do there. Yeah, Turkey's going to be one of those. We're going to see it. We're going to see the blue domes of Turkey. We're
Yeah.
going to see the hot air balloons of Cappadocia like it's
Yeah.
no one's business in a couple of
With,
years.
with a lot of stuff on social media and dudes coming back with hair transplants and plugs.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone's going to have new teeth by. But
That's
yeah, look, knowing those little tips and tricks, it's hard to know unless you are genuinely passionate and invested in wanting to know about it, right? And just by chance, I'm always reading and knowing what's going on in our industry.
yeah.
But yeah, you've got to find those gems. You've got to also not be afraid. People get really afraid of travel just because it's not commercialized. They think it's unsafe as well. That's another kind of interesting thing to me. I'm like, people will say, oh, but isn't Nicaragua like really dangerous? And it's like, you get the area that it's in, right? Like, It's all about understanding what's going on everywhere and also traveling, being a savvy traveler and being careful in the first place. You probably shouldn't leave your home if you're worried about
Yeah.
travel safety, right? Like you should
Well,
have done your research enough
yeah.
to know what you're doing.
And also, if you live in the US, I mean, if you're living near a big city, I mean, if you can walk outside and sometimes in some cities you're like, was that fireworks or what was that, right? And it's like
Mhm.
your own backyard could be more dangerous than where you're going. So I think that's definitely a common misconception. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, that's again, it's going back to the people who do their research, who are reading
Yes.
on what are the trends, because for us personally, we love to do it, but also when we do it, we learn and we get to educate others and make sure that people
Yeah.
are doing it responsibly. Um,
Mhm.
and no, I think it's great. One piece, there's two other things I really want to touch on just because
Sure.
I know I've group travels how I got started. I studied
Yes.
abroad in Ireland, got hooked on going to Europe, started planning
Mhm.
annual snowboarding trips, have been up your way a couple times to one of my
Yeah.
favorites in Whistler.
Mhm.
And, did that. We were going on our 10-year annual snowboarding trip this year. Unfortunately, I can't go because I have a wedding here in
Oh,
March.
oh no.
But we're not doing it because no one's going to go if I don't plan it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but
That's
started
okay.
yeah, but started doing, those group trips, started going over to Europe, like I mentioned, do with couples, do some group trips, but I think it's really important, right? You learn a lot about people when you travel with them, but also there could be someone that I haven't seen in years. And right when
Yeah.
we see each other, that memory is, we can remember that. And we have some stupid inside joke that's going to come from that trip. But would just love to hear from you, like with your clients, from others that you've seen, right? What do you think some of the biggest benefits for traveling in a group are, whether it's personal, wellness, financially, kind of anything?
I think when it comes to particularly with like personal group travel, like leisure travel, I think the obvious one is the money saver. There's no doubt that if you go in a group, depending on the size of your group or how you're wanting to be accommodated, but you can save so much money. If you've got a few families or a few couples and you want to travel together, you can go to and get end up with a private villa, private services. You can have a chef, you can have a bartender, you can have really beautiful private facilities that you just cannot achieve this traveling as two people on your own, right? So it's like the whole travel experience changes. So if you're looking to do a vacation with a group of friends and it is just a flop and drop, as I refer to, just to relax, rejuvenate, chill, everybody to have fun together, there is no doubt that if you look at the cost of a standard hotel room package or even like an all-inclusive package, which I'm not an all-inclusive person, so I can't,
Same.
I don't like them at all. I don't agree with them, but people do it as with
Yeah.
groups, right? And often I'm like, if only they realized that all the money they spent even on that all-inclusive trip could have been put into a private villa, particularly in places like Mexico. This is a
Yeah.
big all inclusive destination, which means super commercialized. And you're almost just basically having an American experience on a Mexican beach, as far as I'm concerned. That's kind of how it ends up being. If you get a private villa with 4 couples or 5 couples in Mexico, you're going to have a completely different experience, and the memories that you make, there is no doubt they're going to be more valuable at the end of the day. And we do very purposefully, we have 2 retreats a year at Inspired with our staff, and they are so important to the backbone of our whole premise and vision about we are a people-based company and we humanize as much as we can. We understand how beneficial this is to the company that we spend not only the time together, but also you get different strengths out of people in a corporate environment when you travel together and you retreat together. And I would say to taking the emphasis off necessarily working. Like there's nothing worse than having to go on a work trip to Jamaica and spend 3 days in a conference room
Oh,
and
yeah.
then fly home. That's not what a retreat is. Whereas if you can say, even if you say to people, hey guys, we're going to have to put an extra push in this month and do a couple of maybe a late night or something, or we're going to do a few big reports and like and conference, a little bit of conferencing at work, but then we're going to take you guys away for 3 days and do all of the fun stuff, people will be like, hands down, I'm in, and the type of experiences that you can do together are things that they won't do on their own, right? Like with a group, you can charter a yacht together for a day in Mexico. You're not going to do that on your own. That's going to be way too expensive. But you can go deep sea fishing together as a group. You can do things that bring out different strengths in people. You can see a different side to your staff. I'm sort of incorporating here leisure and corporate, but I think they've got so many interchangeable benefits, and people discount the fact that they just think, oh, we don't need to spend that money. It's a waste of money. But if you sit and think about the value it brings, it is so rewarding. And every time we do any of our retreats, they're the things we all talk about. They're the things we all bond over. It's what keeps our staff retention so high. You can give someone a bonus at the end of the year, but money only has value for such a limited amount of time, and then they become accustomed to it, and everybody wants more or needs more. They put their bonus towards their bills, or they put their bonus towards the necessities. If you take them away and don't give them a choice and take them to a private villa in Mexico with a chef and free-flowing margaritas and, experiences, surfing lessons, and they will never forget it, right? And I think the benefits just go on and on. You're going to need to stop me talking because
No, I love, no,
a big proponent of it.
it's a cool, no, it's something I haven't heard. And I think it's very valuable because at the end of the day, you're thinking, yeah, the bonuses are going to come, but it's going to go towards, and sometimes people haven't had that experience and you're showing it to them. And at the end of the day, they're probably thinking it's like, if you get a gift, a lot of the times I like to do this, give a gift from a personal standpoint. A lot of the times, if it's an experience, people, you're going to remember that. 2 years ago, I can't tell you what I got for Christmas. Maybe this jacket, but I can tell you that over the past few years, we've gone to Turks and Caicos, Costa Rica, Portugal, places like that from surprise trips, because those are the type of things and those are the memories that we're constantly going to create. But I think just like you talked about earlier with educating and consulting and just being that expert, right? And being that advisor to some of these CFOs and just showing like, hey, you need to think outside the box, because doing this, it's not just a numbers game. Yes, it might be year one, it might be a numbers game. If you may spend a little more, but guess what? You're going to get more performance over the longer term, and you're going to have more collaboration, which is going to lead to this, this, and this. So no, that's a great way to put it.
You notice as well when you're away and you're with your team, because you're so excited and happy and you're doing these really cool things together and you're seeing them in a different light, people just shine, right? Strengths come out that you didn't know they had, ideas come out. So you're essentially like brainstorming while you're away without people even thinking that they're working in any capacity, but they are. People will want to have that time to pick your brain or talk to their boss, or, I know for our staff, they love the fact that they're seeing me in my genuine passion in what I do, what I love and what I work towards and what my goals are about. They understand who I am on a personal level, and I let those guards down. I'm not just, the person delegating the tasks or talking about work all the time, but because of it, they talk about it anyway because they want to know, they want to understand where ideas come from, or they'll come to me with really innovative ideas because they've pushed themselves out of their comfort zone. And I think even when you travel with friends or groups or even family reunions and things like this, right? It's so powerful for like bringing people together. If you don't get to see your family all the time, and then you live apart in different states or whatever it may be, and then you say, let's all go away on a holiday, and someone tries to organize it, which is also the hardest thing in the world. So people like us are very underestimated in how much work we do, but it's a difficult thing to do. And so many times, I know this just from everybody, a lot of people I know, right? They go, oh, yeah, we're going as a family to an all-inclusive for a week, and all the families have their own room. And yeah, we'll just have drinks by the pool and whatever. And they come home and say, yeah, it was good. It was fun. We had a great time, but this and that and the other. If they had gone and gotten a 5-bedroom villa, the difference just from a family unity perspective and bonding, you don't, it's very hard to keep those bonds up if you don't live in the same city or country. My family's in Australia and I organize these sort of things for my family all the time. Very lucky they are. But when we do those experiences, I organized my parents' joint birthday, and we went to an island off Queensland in Australia, and I had 30 people come, and it was a surprise, and they didn't know, and a lot of coordination went on. But what that did for them with their friends and family and the memories that created, and honestly, it wasn't, people just think, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have millions of dollars to blow on this. No, no, no. It was done very, very, smartly. It was well executed. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I get to go on a holiday and celebrate, and all my friends are there,
Yeah.
right? It's similar to destination weddings and things like that,
Hmm.
right? The memories that you get from that and the experience are really second to none. Like, I do think that until you've experienced it, it's hard to empathize and understand. But you've now been doing it with your friends, and that bond that you guys have is
Oh,
so
yeah.
right?
Well,
You can't.
you have random text just that'll be an inside joke that happened seven
Yes,
years ago. And but it's I mean, shit, it made me start a company, right? So
yes.
so
Which
it's
in
but
itself is so inspiring, right? Like, to
yeah.
think that your travel experiences encourage you to shift your career and pivot and start something new and actually do something you love,
Yeah.
right? Is so cool. And that's sort of the benefit of it, of all of
Yeah.
it, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's daunting. People think it's not possible. They also think it's not available to them. Like,
Hmm.
when people see my experiences, they think it's pie in the sky, not real. And then when I say to them, oh, if I booked this for you and your family and it was split between five, it would cost this much for the week. They'll be like, what? What do
Yeah.
you mean? Like, how is that possible? Not to mention, if you go with a group to somewhere like Mexico and you go to an all-inclusive, you get one experience, right? That
Yeah.
we all know is not what we love. If you go and get a private villa, you've got local staff working there for you, with you. You've got this authentic immersion into their culture. You learn about people. Like, we had our Christmas retreat in Puerto Escondido, which is outside of Huatuco, which is another amazing destination in Mexico, which I love. It's much more of the real rustic Mexico, but a big emphasis down there in Huatuco is private villas. And so, but at a cost that you would be surprised how affordable it is to get a private villa on the beach in Escondido or Huatuco. And we had this amazing group of staff there that were working with us, and the chef was just, this was authentic home cooking Oaxacan food. People learned about a new cuisine. They were forced to have to speak Spanish because they couldn't speak Spanish, they couldn't speak English, so we had to just communicate. And it was like, you're introducing them to so many new things. Even the resident dog that was there became like our little mascot and touched a chord with us, right? And this was like a beautiful private villa that, if you compared it to, even if I had to put my staff at a hotel in Mexico, it would have cost more. And
Yeah.
people just don't believe that that could be the case.
But
And
yeah.
yeah, it's cool, right? These are amazing experiences that you can't almost, I say money can't buy. Yes, they can, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's,
Well,
yeah,
again, it goes back to, and that's, I think you learn over time too. It's, yes, sometimes you may start out like I start out staying in hostels, but you start to learn like, okay, if you stay in Airbnbs with groups, that's going to be significantly cheap. People are like, wow, you paid $40 a night and you stayed in this awesome place. Like, yeah, we had six people in it, right? So it
mm,
like makes it better, but I'm in the same boat as you. And for me, I focus on, for people who want to go sit down at an all inclusive and do that, like those aren't the people that I look to help and serve because at the end of the day, that's great. You're taking a vacation, but what are you truly bringing out of it, right? You aren't getting immersed in the culture. You aren't trying, you're going to a buffet and like you said, an Americanized buffet, and you
yeah,
aren't staying in, that where you are staying in the same house where you're gonna be together. It's not, oh, I'm just gonna go back to the hotel room. You're gonna have
Yeah.
that bonding. And it puts you outside your comfort zone too. You learn a lot about more about versus, cool, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna go to the hotel, breakfast, I'm gonna go to the bar, and then I'm just gonna hang out by the pool. Like that's great if you want to relax, but if you stay somewhere else, like you said, a villa that has a pool, that has maybe someone who's working there, or you have a guide that you can say, hey, today we want to do this,
Mhm.
it makes it such a different experience. And through that, especially traveling with groups, like you have so many funny experiences that you're gonna mess up, right? It's inevitable. I still do all the time, but you laugh about it and you're just like, that was hilarious because those little things happen. But now I'm in the same boat as you, and it's definitely valuable. My suggestion to people is always, look, book the trip, make sure you're going and doing different things that you like, but also getting outside your comfort zone because
Mhm.
you'll learn a lot and you'll come back and say, wow, that was amazing. And every time
Mhm.
someone travels abroad for the first time, I'm always like, because they obviously know what I do and what and I travel a bunch. I'm like, what do you think? And they're just like, oh my God, I'm hooked, like that. And then it just leads to more and more like, okay, where do you want to go next? Like, what do you,
Yeah.
so, and it just gets them. And I saw a stat where it's like 97% of people are happier when they know they have an upcoming trip. Because, like you said on the beginning of the
Of course.
episode, I know I'm working for something and I know that
Yeah.
like all this hard work is going to pay off. And then
Mhm.
I'm going to come back and it's just going to continue to compound. And, I always think of it in investing terms. When you talked about finding the next place to go, it's,
Mhm.
you have to kind of do that strategy and find the next right big
Yeah.
startup that's going to be that next country and be flexible and take the chance and take a risk. And
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to.
Well, and I think you also need to find what are your hobbies and what are the things in your personal life that drive you and give you and make you a passionate person and find those in your travel experiences. I am like I love swimming. I swim all the time. And I have all my life pretty much. And so I love snorkeling. Like it's my like happy place and it just takes me out of my any train of thought that comes to family, like things I need to do or work or anything like that. And so for me, it's a huge motivator to be like, where can I go now to see a new underwater world, right? This is a hobby that I've been like, okay, I'm so motivated by it. I can swim around for hours and then it becomes my little daily routine on my trip, right? And so we're all creatures of habit, but it's so nice to know that when you have those things to look forward to when you're traveling, and incorporating them into your travel. Food is another one that people love, using food, wine, and travel go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So if you're a passionate foodie, there's nothing better than incorporating food and travel. And it's something that, I've always done too. So I would choose destinations based on like food I want to explore
Yeah.
and try. And like I will push us out of our comfort zone. And, I've even pushed like our team. We went up into the hills one time in Oaxaca and went to this cooking school, not a cooking school, it was a very rustic village where they were still grinding the masa of a morning and the kids go down and pick it up before they go
That's
to
cool.
school, take it home, and then mum makes the tortillas of the day and we did this tasting menu. It was rustic, but a tasting menu. And we're eating like all different types of insects and like the ants from this certain field, and everything was farm to table, and everything was within 5 kilometer radius because it had to come from the village. And it was just the most amazing immersive experience. And my staff were just like, oh my gosh, like this is so inspiring. And this is like, it's a big world out there, right? And people are
Yeah.
living in this primitive sense, but so happy at the same time, which is
Hmm.
another reality check you get from travel. We live in the rat race and don't take time to smell the roses. If you go into some of these other destinations and countries and cultures, all of a sudden you have to stop and take a break and go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I am not sitting back and enjoying the simple things in life. And I think you
Yeah.
get so many of those lessons, as I'm sure you have, where you just think, wow, isn't it amazing that someone's sitting making their hand fishing net all day and every day, and he's the happiest man I've ever met? How inspiring is that, right? This is the kind of thing that just gets everything firing for you. And you come home with a new sense newfound sense of energy and rejuvenation. Exactly, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's so addictive. I'm so addicted to that, right?
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I 100% agree. And
Yeah.
each different place, and if you push yourself outside your comfort zone and go to different areas, I think that's the biggest thing. And you'll
Mhm.
see, yeah, we were in Costa Rica. We did an ATV tour through, and they sat us down, and we went through just it's like you said, some of the huts, and went through some of the rituals, and it was like
Mhm.
this is very cool, and you're just at
Mhm.
peace. And yeah, we're doing a when we go on our honeymoon, we're doing a uh, what do you call it? A cooking class
Yeah.
when we're in Chiang Mai, and like we're
Yeah.
pumped for that because obviously we like
Oh,
Thai food, but now
amazing.
I haven't done that, so definitely excited. And yeah, those are the type of experiences that you really get to see the culture, and you get to see like, wow, we really have it good, and we do need to take time to slow down and focus on these little things. So no,
Well,
well
and
said.
appreciating like the process of, when you're in Chiang Mai and when you see what they do to even, cultivate their own rice and things like that, it's just amazing that they're back to primitive ways that they're using to put the rice on the plate, right? It's like
Hmm.
we don't see any of that in our everyday. I mean, I went to when we were in Europe in Puglia, like I said, because Puglia is so focused on farm to table and they live in such a primitive way, the way they eat. It's all local and it's all slow food. I came home and I'm like, right, no more processed food, which is almost impossible in North America. But I
Yeah.
was like, so inspired that now we only make our own pasta now from, we met an amazing couple in Puglia and they had us at their house and cooked, and we cooked with them. They cooked with our kids, and we learned how to make our own orecchiette, the traditional pasta in Puglia. And now we've come home and I'm ordering my San Marzano tomatoes from Italy and I only make pasta. This is the kind of stuff that is like so cool. And especially for
Yeah.
my kids to see that and my kids love it now. But unfortunately now they're just like, I won't eat anything but handmade pasta. But
That's
But
funny.
if I can set some precedences for them to eat better and to live better and to like we don't need these packaged foods. Come on, let's make our own. You get all this from traveling, right? And that's so good in many different levels, work, home, kids, all of
Yeah.
it. So it's super
You're
inspiring.
speaking music to my ears, and just like
Yeah.
timely enough where yeah, I mean I've always, you know, grew up playing sports, go to the gym, make sure I got walks, but from a diet standpoint, thought I was doing the right stuff. And my fiance, helped great to her was like, oh, we need to focus on this and that. And like we went to, Portugal, you eat and you're like, okay, this food is a lot better. I'm not as full. And I think I lost weight because I was walking around and eating healthier. Then we
Yes.
went to Costa Rica. We did, when we were in Monteverde, we did, it was the San Lucas treetop dining experience. If you ever go, it's amazing. It's like a 9-course meal. They take you around the culture, and it's up in
Wow.
this treetop that overlooks the Monteverde forest. You watch the sunset. And unfortunately, it was raining for us, it, but they talked about the blue zones, and next thing you know, we came back.
The
What
documentary was on.
watch the
Yeah.
documentary. Got the cook. We haven't used the cookbook as much, but we started to do that, and then that led
Yeah.
to me, of course, being like, all right, I need to like fix this. And then
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of Function Health or anything, but we then got into that where they do a bunch of biomarker tests, and then you kind of see like, here's what I need to eat better. Here's what I need to do.
Mhm.
And for me, it was all beans. They're like, you need to eat more beans and then focus
That's
on
really
which
interesting.
was interesting. But you learn
Yeah.
that because it's not your daily just your check the box physical. It's you're not just
Yeah.
taking 20 blood draws, you're taking 100, and then they're giving you guidance on this is what you need to do personally to improve. But I would have never learned that if I didn't go to Portugal, to there, to
Yes.
then Greece, where we were eating Greek salads and all that good food. And then we came home and I'm like, I cannot eat all this stuff. But yes, it definitely opens your eyes. It helps you focus on those things. And at the end of the day, those things help you then focus on the important things like travel,
Mhm.
like taking time for yourself, like those. And then you're going to do that more, and you're going to be in better health, which is going to help you think clear, which is going to ultimately make you travel more and just
Yeah.
have a better overall lifestyle.
Another rewarding experience from venturing into a new destination, right? Like you come
Yeah.
back and you're all of a sudden considering different things about your own health or about the lifestyle that you lead in an area where we do compartmentalize our life and we end up in this little bubble and don't think about something we might be doing every day because everybody else in our bubble is doing it. We think it's the right thing. But then, yeah, we go somewhere and experience something completely different and say, well, hang on, the
Yeah.
longevity here, people are living longer, people are happier. There's something to that, right? And so it's like if I can even just adapt and change a few things in my life, maybe I can start to get a better feeling about the decisions that I'm making. And I think, again, that powerful
Yeah.
lesson of traveling and learning how other people live and, learning new ways of doing things and new skills for yourself, which again, in turn, at work, you're going
Yep.
to start to put those into action at work too. You're going to go to work and be able to say, hey, let's take this and find a new solution, or maybe we could come up with another idea, because I've found that innovating actually really works and
Yeah.
you use it in every aspect of your life. And like you said as well, it's the same as the emphasis on fitness and health, and how traveling actually encourages that, because we're more active when we're traveling,
Hmm.
right? So we go away, we come back, we feel healthier. We've probably think we may have eaten worse, but we've actually eaten better food because most of
Hmm.
it's farm to table in a lot of these destinations. I mean, you'll find that in Thailand, right? It's just the most beautiful farm to table food, and it's so delicious, but it's actually helping and healthy, and it's more organic, and it's there's something to be said for that. And that's really exciting to know that you can go somewhere and take influence from that and hopefully bring it back to people that and educate your friends
Yeah.
too, right? People love these kinds of stories and
Yeah.
advice. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's great.
100%. And I've started a this year really on LinkedIn, have focused on, my audience is busy professionals who are similar to, myself and over my career, and just kind of told that story. And I've had people either message me, comment, just a bunch that are just like, hey, I'm loving these posts. Like, these are very inspirational. Like, I would have never known about this. Like, keep them going. And it's cool because it does have an impact. Even if it's 5, 10 people, like over time, right? That's going to compound, and you're helping other people, because I didn't know, but going out and kind of being a leader through that it's very important. And by the way, before I might forget my train of thought, I need you to send me the homemade pasta recipe, because that sounds
Oh, for sure. Yes, it's straight from Puglia,
oh,
straight
I
from the
love it.
chef herself.
I love
And
it.
it's so easy, and it's got very little ingredients, and that is kind of the key, right? What we
Yes.
need to be doing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, I want to wrap up with, we're talking about innovating, and I know when we
Yeah.
spoke, and something you talk about that everyone's aware of, and I think when we talked, the travel industry is a little behind on the times when it comes to
Mhm.
that, but AI is going to be a huge part of a lot of people's lives here soon. I think for people like yourself and myself who are tech savvy entrepreneurs, we're always thinking of, okay, what's it going to look like in the next 2, 3, 5 years? And how can we
Yeah.
be out in front of that and work not only personally, but for our businesses? How do you see it helping maybe, and I can speak to this too after you answer, but people who may want to plan their own personal trips, but
Mhm.
also just from an automation standpoint for like businesses, right? Going back to that customer service, how are
Yeah.
you going to, like, how do you feel that's going to act as a valuable tool and an assistant, or do you think there are going to be things to look out for with it?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic because a lot of people are often hesitant to ask my industry about it, because people in our industry are very intimidated by AI, and rightfully so, because it is a dinosaur. Our industry, we still work off a very primitive system, a DOS system, if you can believe it. But it is the international worldwide airline system is very archaic. But because of that, there's a lot of old school thought, and it's either people have sort of gone one way or the other. People think of AI being like that it's taking over because of the big guys in our industry that are automated services already and using online portals. But I think it's far more complex than that. And I'm a huge supporter of AI in business, because this is that thing in any business, no matter what it is that you're doing. If you don't keep up with technology or understand what's happening, you will be swallowed, whether you like it or not. It's here, it's coming. You either embrace it and you try to find the benefits and the positives of it, or you will be flattened. So you can't turn a blind eye or ignore these things. We need to actually understand how it works properly and then use it as a really valuable tool. And where I see it becoming a huge help in our industry is that it can definitely get the information that we need. We still have to research. There's no,
Hmm.
I don't know every single thing in the world when it comes to travel,
Yeah.
obviously, right? We still need to research. But the key is, and if you're doing this for yourself, leisure when you're traveling, or if you're doing this as an agent and you're preparing things for your client, everything still takes time. And we still have to, like, you cannot cut corners when it comes to travel at all. And so it's going to take research, but it's what you ask the AI and how you manage the AI as to making sure you get the right answers. And so I think a good example, if you just said, I want to go to Italy, write me a 10-day itinerary, right?
Yeah.
It will. It'll write you an itinerary, but it's just grabbed everything from every amalgamator, and then you put in exactly that question again, and you'll get a different itinerary. There's many, many options to that itinerary. So what you have to do is first sit down and qualify yourself for the trip that it is that you're going on. And this is like travel agent 101 back in the day.
Hmm.
I don't know if they teach it anymore because there's not many authentic travel agents out there, but one of the most important things to anybody traveling is to understand that they're qualified properly. So you've got to sit yourself down and say, what do I want to get out of this? Do I want relaxation? Do I need health and wellness? Do I want do I want to learn a new hobby or a new skill? Whatever it is that you want to do, how busy you like the area, if you like cities and hustle and bustle, if you want remote, quiet, whatever, you've got to put all that information into AI, put it together, and then write your little message to AI, and then they'll design a great itinerary for you. And I have no doubt that it will design a very good itinerary. You then need to take that itinerary and tweak
Hmm.
and pivot slightly when you see things. Actually read the information, don't just regurgitate the information. So it's about using it as a really great assistant in the work that it is that you're doing. And I think if we use it efficiently and productively, it can be a great tool in any business and even for any business owner for that matter. But if you take the easy approach and you take the lazy approach and you just plug in generic questions, you're going to get generic answers. Just like what we said before, you get what you put in, right? You pay to
Yeah.
play. You have to put the effort. Nothing comes easy. And this is that thing in business that is always like, I'm passionate about the industry and what I do, but I've been in business for a long time as well. I'm very passionate about business, and I don't take it for granted how difficult it's been. And it can be very frustrating, and I'm sure you agree, when people just assume that they can just be like, I'm just going to start a business. And they don't take the time, and they think that, oh, well, if I just throw out enough of this, the chances are throw enough balls in the air, one will get caught. It's
No.
never going to happen. It's like it is blood, sweat, and tears. It is passion. It
Yeah.
is like hard work and tenacity. You have to believe in whatever it is you're doing 1,000,000% to actually make it successful. And then it's all about consistency. And like what you were saying, you got to be consistent and steadfast. Don't give up on it, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to, it's all quality. It all comes back to we live in this world of everything is fast and done and in instant gratification, right? I see this in my children and it just makes me think, how am I going to teach this to them? Right? But we have to take a step back. And even with AI, it won't give you the perfect answer if you don't give it a thought-provoking, calculated question. And I think if we use it properly, it's an amazing tool.
Oh
And
yeah.
it excites me a lot. I love it. I use AI all the time, but only as an assistant to my work, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, great answer. I couldn't agree more. And I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. And you made a good point. I mean, it's investing it. It takes time and over time it compounds. But you have to, when it came out that everyone's like, oh my gosh, ChatGPT, this and that, like I dove headfirst in 18, 24 months ago, like, past, I would say 12 to 18 months, it's been daily. And just seeing how far that and other tools have come has been amazing.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I've learned alongside it because I've been in it daily, right? And I've been
Yes.
prompting and I've been creating, and it does. And I was helping plan some of the stuff for our honeymoon, and like I just think back to 10 years ago. I'm like, okay, I got to do this, that, so many search tabs, Google tab, all this. Now it's a lot easier, but still, there's a lot of fine tuning. You have to, even with search features, you have to know what to prompt. You have to know what to search. And I think it's a great tool. I think it's going to be helpful. But again, it goes back to leaning in on experts. And I mean, I don't know if I'd call myself an expert yet, but leaning in on people who have used it and are continuing to use it and staying out in front of it, because those are the
Yeah.
people that are going to help you when, and that's what's going to make it easier is right. Once there's AI agents where you understand you can create, hey, maybe I can help go create something that can help me plan my personal travel if I have the time. And
Mhm.
that just depends on if that's for you or not. And if it is,
Yeah.
that's great. But I think like for what what you're doing is it's going to be very valuable because, like you said, it's another assistant. It helps your team have other assistants. It just helps you be more productive. And if you use it right, that's the beauty of it. And it's getting out in front of it, like you said, because the people who don't are like, oh, I don't know about it. It's like, well, if you didn't start using the internet back in 1999, 2000, like, what are you
Yeah.
not using it now? So it's
Exactly. Yeah. It'll swallow you up basically. But yeah, it is about like understanding. I think in our industry, the biggest strength is going to be that you need to understand when you need a human and when you can utilize AI. And
Mhm.
like from the perspective of me using it in my business and why it doesn't intimidate me is because I know that for at least right now, I don't know what's going to happen with AI,
Yeah.
how emotional AI is going to become. But this industry is an extremely emotionally based industry, and without the human touch, it's a bit of a terrifying world because, and this is what we see now, right? Very angry people all the time dealing with airlines or dealing with suppliers that can't help them, or they get a call center, or they get people that not people, they're just getting a robot,
Yeah.
right? And it
Yep.
cannot fix the problem. And so the reassurance that I have is that our human element is our biggest strength without a doubt. So if we can help AI use AI to help us be able to give more of our human
Hmm.
element, like if the AI can make us more productive in the back end and then we can provide more of a human touch on the front end, then we're even more powerful, right? So
Yes.
it's about looking at what you can use and how you can utilize it to strengthen your business. And, for us, it is really focusing on making sure we're there for the client because travel is stressful and emotional and scary and things happen and it's high stress environment. If you've got someone where you can pick up the phone and a person answers that knows what they're doing and can reissue your ticket in 30 seconds on the phone,
Yeah.
that is like gold, right? In corporate travel industry. It's rare now.
Yeah.
So people like our clients are just like, oh, thank God I didn't have to stand in that line.
Yeah.
I could call you guys. But if AI can help on the back end to make us more productive to do that and have more people available, great, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
you're
think
you're making yourself more productive, you're streamlining
yes,
things, and at the end of the day I think what's it got hot, everyone absolutely loved it, and then people are like, oh, I don't know, people haven't used it as much, they probably don't
yeah,
know what it's capable of from a positive standpoint. From the people who do every day, like, we understand this is significantly impacting what I can do, but also
yeah,
people are going to catch on to that, realize it, and then I think what might happen is there's going to be so much noise, similar to like what you're talking about with social media, where it's like monkey see, monkey do, where they're going to come back to people who are authentic, who have right a face, who have a brand, where they can go, you know what, I want to go. If I'm going corporate travel, I want to go to Inspired Travel Group. If I want to
yeah,
go personal travel and I need to know where to go for specific destinations, tips, resources, if I want to learn how to build my own AI agent
yeah,
or leverage AI, for personally, and I'm a busy professional, I go to Ross and Itinerary Boss.
yeah,
But it
absolutely.
stands out, and it's being able to leverage that and then stand out in a crowded market. And I think that's why I was excited when we were talking about it. I'm like, oh, this could be a podcast episode in itself. But I just wanted to touch on that
Yeah,
because I think it is important. And I want listeners to think about that because it is a tool, and
mhm.
don't just take it and then end up in the places during peak season that we mentioned, right? Prompt it the right way. Come to people. If
Yeah.
you're in the business side, corporate travel, go to Danielle. If you're on the personal side and a busy professional, come to me. We're here to help. We've been in your shoes, and that's the beauty of it is that'll help us help more people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting world with AI, and I think that people that have come into it, like you said, it was really popular and now it's died off a little. That's pretty, it's not surprising because people jump in thinking it's a quick fix
Yep.
solution, but then realize very quickly, oh, it's actually not going to completely do it for me. It's going to give me a rough idea of something, or it's going to give me this cookie cutter version of something. Well, I don't want that. That's too
Yeah.
hard. I have to then actually think about it. Oh, I'm just going to write this myself, right? So I think that's what's happened. People are like,
Yeah.
oh, great, this is the solution to everything. I'll just plug in my generic questions and it'll get it done for me. And then they realize, oh, there's far more nuances than that. But it's the people who are prepared to put the time in and actually, research it like you've been doing and working so hard with it that you're going to come out on top, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to know how to use it better than everybody. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you're keeping up with what's going on. And for us, that's really important too. But
And I can
yeah.
tell you it's not a quick fix.
No,
I struggle every day. I'm like, wow, this is great, but also this is hard. And even someone
yeah.
who reads a daily newsletter, who listens to there's a podcast, The Next Wave, which if you haven't heard of it, you definitely should take a look. And the newsletter's The Neuron. It's
Yeah.
great. They're always providing updates and it's valuable stuff, but even that, it's just like it's a crazy time. But I think if you just continue to learn with it and just, you know, keep your eyes open and again, just, take a
Well,
risk. I think
anything in
it's
business is
yeah,
be open-minded, right? You have to be open-minded. If you're not open-minded and you don't take criticism well, you shouldn't be trying to innovate
yeah,
because it's all about critical feedback. It's all about being able to pivot on a whim. And it's all about not thinking you know everything or you know best. Lean on people for their strengths and go to the right people that know what they're doing because they know what they're doing for a reason, right? It's like I've always looked at successful people are successful for a reason. So anybody that has great success in whatever it may be they're doing, I always want to pick their brain because they're making good decisions. And so maybe I can learn something even in a lateral sense, and I think that's constantly what you've got to do. And the same with AI, right?
yeah,
It would be very hard to be an expert in AI,
yeah,
but anyone who's using it and it's positive, take note because
yeah,
it's coming whether we like it or not, right?
yeah. No, well
Yeah,
said. I always just try to be the dumbest person in the room, and you'll get
exactly.
you'll get a lot out of it.
It's the
But
key. It really is.
yeah, well, Danielle, I appreciate it. This was an awesome conversation.
Yeah, it was great.
For listeners who want to find you, I know I had this question too because I wanted to make sure, right, I was guiding people the right way. I have friends who have their own businesses, small, medium, large size entrepreneurs, as well as just personal travelers. Like who do you all serve, and is there any sort of threshold just so if people want help with some of those things services you offer, they can come to you.
Yeah, so we offer niche corporate travel services, but it's a case by case basis. So via our website and by travelgroup.ca, you can actually access a form that can be filled in. Anybody can fill that form in, and then we'll get back to you and qualify them basically as to whether or not it's a service that can help them with. We normally look at very different sizes of businesses, but looking after their executive teams or even their whole company to group travel, retreats, even niche groups, personal travel as well. But yeah, it's more of a very curated and qualified experience. So if you think that you need help on the corporate side of things, particularly, don't hesitate to contact us and send us through a form, and a human, will get back to
I
you.
love that. Yeah. And for listeners, I'll make sure to share their social medias in the show notes. I'll also share website. So if you do need to go fill something out, let us know. And if anyone reaches out to me, I will personally refer them and go. And also
And vice versa.
there's like a 7.5 minute video that I also share in the show notes of where Danielle did a awesome interview on the social. And yeah, she's big time. So make sure you go check it out.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so lovely to talk to you. I think we're very aligned in our philosophies, and that's always very refreshing. It's often hard to stop us talking though. So
I know,
you
I know. Now this was great, and I'll make sure. Whistler's one of my favorite places to snowboard. So when
yeah,
we're heading through Vancouver, finally Charlotte got direct flights there during certain seasons. So I'll make sure
yeah,
to let you know.
awesome.
But
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Listeners, if you like this episode, make sure you give us a follow. That way you don't miss out on any future episodes. Share it with a friend or family member. That way we can help grow the show and get more people started traveling. And also, if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a review. That helps us grow the show. And like I said, it helps us reach more people. Next week, excited to have another guest on, but stay tuned till then. Thanks again, Danielle. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.